From years of anxiety to warrior and mentor, Bradley Robinson created the Anxiety Project to help you end your anxiety naturally. Let's mold the new you and let's end anxiety together.
Hello and welcome to episode 194 of the Anxiety Project podcast. All right, I'm so excited to share my conversation with Faust Ruggiero. Now, why Faust, his voice matters? Well, he is a published research author, clinical trainer, and a therapist who has worked in settings that have included clinics for deaf children, prisons, nursing homes, substance abuse centers, inpatient facilities, major corporations, both national and international. He is the president of the Community Psychological Center in Bangor, Pennsylvania. He continues to provide counseling services for individuals, couples, families, veterans, first responders, law enforcement, and other emergency personnel. He has taught at the college level and is published in several research journals. Mr. Ruggiero is the author of the Fix Yourself Handbook, which was released in 2019, and this has received literary awards from Literary Titan, the Nonfiction Writers Association, and Indie Reader. He has appeared on television, radio shows, and podcasts nationally and internationally to discuss the process way of life presented in the Fix Yourself Handbook. Now, yes, there's a lot there, and I'm so excited to talk. Well, I was excited to talk with him because we did talk before I recorded this part. And I got to tell you, we go over the whole process from start to finish, anxiety recovery, somebody coming in to see him who is completely overwhelmed, bewildered, confused with anxiety, what's going on internally, and the process out of this hole. Now, this is a podcast episode you will want to re-listen to, and I recommend you share it with somebody because you could change their life. Now, without further ado, here is my conversation with Faust. Faust, welcome to the Anxiety Project podcast. I'm so grateful. I'm excited that you're here today. I'm excited to talk about your new book, the Fix Your Anxiety Handbook, bringing you out of the darkness and into a brilliant new world. I read this book and I found it to be highly practical action steps to get someone out of the hole that they're in with anxiety. But before we dive into the book, can you just briefly mention and talk about your background and tell people who you are and what it is that you do?
Absolutely. First, Bradley, thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I know this is a topic you and I share and we're very passionate about. So, I really appreciate the time to talk about that. As far as I'm concerned, I'm a counselor. I've been in private practice for 33 years and been doing this in a variety of locations for over 40. Everything from individual, family, addiction. I worked in prisons. I've worked in clinics and with deaf kids and corporate settings. So I've been around a little bit. As far as where we are now, I've been counseling long enough. The kids grew up. It was time for me to do a few different things that I thought I'd like to do before before the kids took off. And about 5 years ago, I started writing the Fix Yourself Handbook, which was the first book in the series, and that took off well. We're using the same design now in the Fix Your Anxiety Handbook, and that's just what you alluded to before, which is present the information, give people good, concise information so they can understand the various components, various dynamics of problems like anxiety, and then give that blueprint. Then give those actionable steps that say, okay, given this, let's do this. For example, I talk about anxiety being the most important part being a physical condition. I want people to understand that, but then I want them to learn how to take care of their body. So in 3 or 4 of the chapters, I'll stress that and say, okay, to do that, do these things. Because what I find is that people are, without knowing it, are self-sabotaging. They're doing things that actually, as I call, feed the anxiety demon. And we like to get to the point where people are going to be masters of their own body and their own minds and their own emotions. So those actionable steps are very important.
So someone comes in to see you, Faust, and they're completely overwhelmed. They come in, their life has gotten so beyond them. They can't seem to grapple with all of their problems. They don't even know what their problems are. It's just like their mind is in autopilot, and they're in a traumatized state sometimes. And so what are the beginning steps in that process? So when someone comes to see you and everything is just too much, where do you go from there?
Bradley, you said the magic word, and I've used this throughout my counseling years, and it was one of the first chapters in the first book, Taking Life Off Autopilot. When anxiety gets a person to the point that they can't think anymore because a million things are coming into their mind at once. Their mind's racing. Now the emotions are on hyperdrive. What do we need to do? Well, we need to take the mind off autopilot. And I go back and say, okay, let's take some of these things one step at a time. Let's slow down. The first thing I always want people to do is learn how to slow their bodies down. But they're not going to do that in the first session. So what am I going to do in the first session? To answer your question, I'm going to establish the rapport. I'm going to have them leaving my office knowing that there is a way out of this. I always say that. I got you now. Don't worry about it. We're going to move through this. Anxiety puts people in a position to feel alone. No one understands me. When I try to talk to someone about it, they think I'm overreacting. Come on, get over it. All those kinds of things. They feel alone. When you all of a sudden have someone who's going to be your confidant and says, I understand it. What you have is real. I know the way out of it. That's the first thing people need to know, that there is help. The person understands, and the person knows the blueprint out of the darkness.
I love that. When you said alone, that actually gives me chills, because you actually talked about this in your book. You said here, let me find it. You said something about the shackles, the invisible chains, that you can't see it, and that makes you feel alone.
Yeah, it makes you feel alone. And since you can't see it, you don't know. There's no mental geography, if you will. There's no place where you can say, where do I start? Because I can't even see where this is coming from. So, part of that's giving the person the vision to say, okay, it's coming from here and it's coming from here. But the key is to understand that it's physical. Anxiety is a physical condition. We by the time it hits us and it takes over our emotions and our thought process, we think we're mentally crazy. We've lost it. But it's the body misfiring. When we learn how to get the body in order, then the emotions calm down and the brain starts seeing things, because there's a real reciprocal nature. My body, my brain, and they either help each other or they hurt each other. It depends on what type of relationship you have. So, we want to really get that part of it in order. And most of anxiety is invisible. You don't know where it's coming from. There are triggers, I know when that person does that triggers me. And then what we do is we think with our brain, well, it's that person that causes the anxiety. That's not what happens. The person is merely a trigger. Then it goes to the body, and the body says, okay, thanks, and takes over, and you're in full-blown anxiety, but you think it came from out there. And what I've always said to people is, if that were the case, why are other people getting it from out there, and it comes to them and it doesn't seem to explode? Doesn't seem to be a firework that went off inside you, because they don't have the physical component. That's all it is. So we want to be able to get those reaction times down. I always tell people, in the first 3 seconds, what you do there says what you're going to do next a couple hours. So I don't want them to react. It comes in, you say, okay, I heard that, he said that, or she said that again. Let me just take a break. Let me just walk away from this. And I teach them how to think their way back into a point where their body is back in control.
Right. And so the physical symptoms of anxiety, for people with health anxiety, that's just a day and day after thing, checking in on their symptoms, checking in. They wake up in the morning like, oh, is that pain still there? Am I still feeling dizzy, nauseous, whatever it is? So what are those physical symptoms caused by anxiety? What do you typically see?
The first thing I see is an accelerated life pace. It doesn't calm down. Anxiety doesn't down you out, so to speak. It revs you up. And so here's the way it starts in the beginning of the day. I think this will really answer your question. You get up in the morning and you've decided that long ago that you are a person who has anxiety. You are anxiety. You get up in the morning and now you take your day and you live the whole day as a person with anxiety. You know it when you step out of bed. In fact, before you get out of bed, you're saying, how do I feel? What's going to happen today? Oh my God, I've got that thing to do. And you're already in negative mode, tearing yourself apart. That's the first thing that I see with people all the time. First symptom is the accelerated body pace. The next thing I see is a fear mechanism that comes in. And now the mind starts searching for things because it doesn't want to be blindsided. So we start looking for things as we're trying to figure out how we're going to take care of them. Mm-hmm. So you put those two things together, body's already up, revved up and ready to go. The mind is saying, we got to find out what all these things are, because if not, I don't know what's going to happen. I'll go into a full-blown panic attack. I could be at the hospital. I could, the police could be at my front. I have no idea what's going to go on. So I have to go searching for things. Well, we all know if you go in the backyard and say, I'm going to go search for a red stick, somewhere along the line, you might just find one. Because if we search for something long enough, it's there. Mm-hmm. If you have anxiety and you're saying, okay, I know that person I work with, I know they're going to come and start doing their poking. Not only are you ready, you're nervous, you're looking for it, and then it kicks in one of the most important components when you talk about symptoms. It's victim mode. I don't have the power to deal with my world. I will be a victim. No matter what happens, I'm victimized. Murphy's Law was written specifically for me. All that kind of thing. They did experiments with cats, and they had a more dominant cat and a cat that was victimized by the cat. The victimized cat always came in cowering. When the aggressive cat saw the cat cowering, it attacked. Wow. What I try to get people to understand is, if you keep going into your world as a victim, you will reap what that brings into your world, which is victimization. You're thinking that way. You're almost saying, okay, this is who I am. I know it's going to happen. I can't get rid of this anxiety. No matter what happens, I'm going to be bombarded. My body is going to feel like I want to jump out of my skin. My thoughts are going to race. My emotions will be all over the place. I can't think of what to do. And that's going to be how I live my life. It's no longer a condition. It's me. Mm-hmm. And I have to get people to separate it. It's a condition, a physical condition you have. Let's start there.
Right.
And when we start there, we can separate it. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing. And even the book, I know you saw that in the first chapter. You are not anxiety. It's a condition you have. It's physical. Let's work from there. You're not crazy. Anxiety comes, it revs you up. It gets your emotions horrified. Now your emotions and your body are teaming up, and your mind now is victimized. And there you go. Those three components, which are essential for happy living, are gone. Mm-hmm. And now you think of yourself as worthless, weak, and a victim.
I love that. And that brings me into my next question. What are the signs of the victim? Because they become dependent on external resources, and they stay there, and they don't develop any bravery. They don't develop any independence, and they stay dependent for a long time. They can't seem to break out of it. So I guess there's two questions there: the signs of the victim, but also the beginning steps to breaking outside of the dependencies.
The first thing when it comes to victimization, if you're looking to say, am I a victim? The first thing is, is fear. That's the enemy that develops with anxiety. As I told people for years, moderate anxiety, just a little bit, is actually positive because it pushes you to do something. But when the anxiety gets overwhelming, now we're in the victim mode, we are fearful. Everything is one of those things we're going to take a step back on. Could it? And then we start, another symptom is now we start thinking about it. What could this do to me? Not what can I do to deal with it? What could it possibly do to me? And that brings on a huge third component, which is kind of internal visualization of the damage that's going to be done with me. We now plot that in our brain. We can see it. It becomes like a video in front of us, and it unfolds, and we see it. It's not unlike if a family member was due home at 8 o'clock, and now it's 9, and it's 10, and it's 11, and you've called them, and there's no answer, and you start thinking about the crash on the highway and the ambulance, and are they in the hospital? Are they dead? Now the whole thing unfolds. Well, that's what people do with their lives all the time. Once they get into the victim mode, they start to think about, because they're actually preparing themselves for what they believe is the inevitable. Something is going to go wrong. Let me be prepared. I'd rather be prepared than have it come and I don't know what to do with it. So now and when you get into the visualization part of it, now you really are unfolding the picture for yourself. And the last thing, of course, as you know, is exhaustion. I've seen people just pacing, and an hour worth of pacing is like a day worth of manual work. By the time you're done with that hour, your body hurts, you are exhausted, you just want to sit down and close your eyes, but of course you can't do that because the anxiety won't allow it. So you keep on going, and then the body just learns how to deal with that horrible accelerated pace.
Yeah, I love that. And everyone who's listening right now, you have to share this episode with somebody who to be in that victim mentality, stuck in anxiety. You have to share this. This will change someone's life, if not your own. I mean, this is just brilliant. So someone with that set mindset, who's like, it's not possible to change. They try meditation and they have their perfectionistic mindset where they say, I tried meditation, it didn't work because I'm still anxious afterwards. It's probably not going to work out. So what happens in that point where you're with somebody who's like, I just, it's not possible? What's going on there?
Well, they've learned not to trust anyone's advice, because the people, and I even do a chapter in there, even as people are getting better now, they'll say, you should do this. Well, you should do that. Well, why don't you stop doing this? And in the initial going, people try all those things. Of course, they fail. So now we get into another part of anxiety, which is a trust factor. I can't trust that any advice that's going to come my way is going to work, because every time I've tried, it hasn't. Plus, anxiety has you not able, at least your ability to focus and concentrate is reduced. So being able to commit yourself to something long term is very difficult, because you can't sit long enough to focus on it. Now we're back to the same thing. What do? I'm teaching them, it's a stage kind of approach. Let's get your body calmed down. And for some people, it's some people will get into things like CBD oils and hemp and things. Some people will go to the doctor and get on something like an Advent or a Xanax for a short period of time. We're going to do some things to get the body down. Meditation, prayer, things like that could be all part of that. Let's get the body down just a little bit. I'm going to teach them how to respond, not to react. I will say tomorrow, or even when you leave my office, you got there, something is going to trigger you. This is one of the key components, internal language. You don't go and bring them from point A to point Z. It's A to B. You're not going to talk them right out of it. All I'm going to ask them to do is say, okay, I'm going to try not to do that. I want to introduce some different thought patterns. I know that guy at work's going to start poking, and I know what I do, but you know what? I'm going to go in there and I'm not going to play the victim today. I'm just not going to do that. If I see him coming, maybe I'm going to move into a different area, or I'm just going to say, hey, how you doing? I'm going to rise to the occasion a little bit, and I'm going to start dealing with it a little bit differently in steps. I'm going to tell them it won't work like you want it to right away, because you're looking for something to say, no more anxiety. That's not going to happen. We're going to change your thought processes and how you think, the language you use to think. Because that, you and I are talking. Okay, we'll do this for a better part of an hour. Then we'll go about our day, and I'll be doing some things. You'll be doing some things. The language is now internal. So probably 75% of the language we use every day is in our own brain. If we want the world to treat us a little differently, we got to start there. Positive thinking. And I don't tell them the world's positive. I'm not going to sell them anything. I'm just going to say, let's just start with, I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to do that instead of doing that. No, I'm not going to let that get to me. I'm going to fight that. I'm going to give them some empowering language to use that doesn't go from A to Z, because they'll never get it. They don't have the steps yet. Just A to B. Just, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to try these things. And it works for people. Okay, I can do that. I went home. I was still anxious, but I saw that I didn't think about it the same way. Now, that looks like it's that big. That is huge in their program. They're not going to see it that way. I know it is.
So I just want everybody to re-listen to that last part again. Rewind that, because that was absolutely brilliant. I got chills listening to that, because I remember, and my audience knows, when I started my recovery 4 years ago, I suffered from an anxiety disorder for a bit of time of my life. Ever since I was a child, my anxiety was on and off, and then the anxiety just went to the extreme in my mid-20s, like full-blown health anxiety, agoraphobia. And so I remember going through my recovery, Faust, and I remember slowing down so much of my life. Like, I would see negative friends. I would run around all day. I would wake up at 11 and just eat anything in the fridge, and just like nothing was structured. Everything was just a mess. Okay. And I remember, as soon as I started to slow everything down, I remember my body starting to feel different. Like, I was more present. Like, I was able to look around more. I remember at one point I got into a minor car accident, and I was meditating at the time, like just a minor fender bender. And I would have reacted with an explosive, angry emotion before. But since I was meditating, since my life was slowing down, I handled it with such awareness and calmness that at the end of the day, I sat with myself and I said, oh my God, Brad, who were you today? I never saw that person before. You handled that so coolly. Where did that come from? And you just explained it so well right there. Yeah.
It's small steps that'll get you there. In my life, if something happens, my brain is trained long enough now that when it happens, my brain says, okay, calm down. It just calm down. Where anxiety goes, the volcano hits. And you're first of all, on an anxious scale, 1 to 10, so to speak, you're already at a 7. So, when something happens, it just shoots. But when you get to the point that you understand this, as soon as the trigger happens, your mind and your body just go down real quick. Mm-hmm. And then you're able to say, okay, what do I want to do with this? And you avoid all that other stuff. But the initial part right now is simply learning how to train your body. And I keep telling people, learning, which is what you need to do this, is a matter of repetition over time. Mm-hmm. Nothing happens that quickly. You're not going to go into, and I get this a lot of times, you think we can get through this, in 3 or 4 months when it comes to counseling? I don't know. How quick do you think you're going to learn and be able to apply it? It's usually, anxiety, it's probably 6 months. And then people, and what will happen then, it's the interesting thing. It's almost like when you start working out and you do those initial exercises and you get tired and you get sore and say, I don't want to do that anymore. And then you start doing it. Now you're challenging yourself. Now the elliptical trainers tightened up, and you now you want to see how far. So now they say, do you mind if I keep coming? Because I want to get powerful now. And we all have all the things we need are already inside us. We just have to learn how to go and get them. And I would say anxiety is like, like all your good stuff's in the garage, but you've been piling crap in that garage forever. And now you say, I want to get to that good stuff. Well, let's start at the beginning and take one thing out at a time. And when you take all the negatives out, there's the good tools you're going to use. And what you said before hit it right on the mark. All those things you were doing that were feeding the demon, as I say. You've seen a quote, a little term in there I call the demon's comfort prison. When you have anxiety, you're just looking for any way you can get 20 minutes, 10 minutes worth of relief. So what do? You do sit in front of the TV with all those comfort foods. You go with friends who are also experiencing problems because, God forbid, you don't fit in with the other people. And you keep on doing all those things that are designed to give you some quick fixes for a little while. But those comfort zones then lock you in. And those begin to contribute to the anxiety and to the depression that comes with it and the horrible feelings about yourself. And what used to be you thought was wonderful has now contributed and made it that much worse. So I'm going to move those comfort zones. We're going to redefine what a comfort zone is, and the mind will adjust. We've been on this earth for a long time. The mind has the capacity to adjust, and it will. I just got to teach them how to get there. That's all.
Oh my God, I love that. I remember when I started to slow everything down, a lot of spaces would open up throughout my day, because I would sit with myself and I would say, what things am I doing every day that I know I should stop doing, but I just can't seem to stop doing? And I was like, okay, I'm hanging out with negative friends. I'm doing this. I'm staying up till 2. And so I decided, okay, Brad, what's something you didn't do before that could benefit your higher self? Okay, maybe if I go to the library and read for an hour or 2 hours, that's different from what I used to do. And so I went to the library, I sat down with a book, and I remember I viewed myself as like this dog being trained. Like, it's like calm down, this is all you're doing for the next hour, 2 hours. Like I felt restless. I wanted to get up and so I think like there's a lot of open gaps being made now that you're switching your lifestyle choices, right? So you're sacrificing so many things that fuel the demon. And now you're like, okay, how do I fill those gaps? So what are the big habits that are so unbelievably useful for someone who's just revved to the max?
When you are that rev first, and that's the first thing we have to look at. Can you begin to stop on your own? Can we do some things, and are you able to do it? I get people come in and so let's just start a meditation thing, but they can't sit 5 minutes. So when they say, no, I started, I keep trying to start. So we have to look at whether or not something to calm your body down is going to be in the picture. Some people just genetically are so predisposed to this. And there's another thing, as you know, you go back into family histories, all the people with anxiety have people with anxiety in their family history, which tells you it's genetically involved. Doesn't mean we can't stop it. We certainly can. Okay, so we want to get that body calmed down. The first thing, the biggest thing, is get you to understand how to calm your body down. That's all. And look at it this way. If I can get you to take 25, 30% of the anxiety away by doing the things that's a lot. That gives you, it goes from insanity to manageability to control. And, and a lot of people would just be saying, if I could just manage this, I'd be okay. Manage is in the middle. It can tip either way. We want to get you to learn how to manage it and then shift over to the calmer side. The first thing is the body. Let's get the body down. And I will tell you this, if I get 10 people come in the office with anxiety, all 10 will say, stop my thinking.
Right.
They'll go, because that's the high, look at the body as the primal part. Emotions come in, that's kind of the mediator between the body and the mind. And then you have the intellect. Well, the intellect decided that it should be strong enough to calm all this down, which is another reason victimization and horrible self-worth come in, because now you're a failure. Now your brain is gone. You can't even control your own mind, your own body. So they try to go there first. Body first. It's always body first. I've never seen one case of anxiety where it wasn't the body first. Even cases where, there was some abuse and there was a horrible work environment and, economic problems, all those things were there. Once we got the person to calm down, their rational thought processes increased. And now they were able to do some of those things they want their brain to do. It's always body first.
So, yes, I love that. And then I think goals come into play shortly after, right? So you talk a lot about goals in the book. Can you talk about that now? What are the importance of goals? How do you set goals? And I guess before you answer, I love how you talked about the small incremental 1% steps rather than, hey, look at this guru, you should probably be like that.
So one of the things, unfortunately, we do in our societies, we look at the person who has arrived, is the actor, the sports star, the singer, or the person who's doing what you and I are doing. This, I need to go there. No, that's them. That's their statement. You need to look at you and take you where you need to go. And it's not going to be some leap and bound. Someone said to me, well, I'd like to do what you're doing. And I, his second book. And I said, hold off. There's been a lot of years of putting this knowledge together. And even when I wrote the first book, and for all of us who have written books, we know that you go into the first one and you have no idea what you're doing. So I spent a year before I even started writing to learn everything I could learn about the publishing industry and talk to anyone I could talk to, other authors, publicists, copy editors. I went online to see what the processes were, so I knew before I got there. Then I went in and made the mistakes that were inevitable to make, and then we learned how to clean those up. Now it's funny because my copy editor said to the first book, she took a long time to help me do things. The second book, she says, "My God, you got it. This was easy this time around." Yeah, but don't think I'm some brilliant guy who just stepped right into writing. And no, it took a long time to get there. Are you willing to make the commitment? Now we talk about those little steps. And it's just, let me set a small goal that I know I can attain, but challenges me a little bit. I'm having agoraphobia. I'm not leaving the house. Well, maybe I'll just sit on the porch and I'll go out and do that for a while. Maybe I'll go into the backyard, or if I'm in an apartment building, I'm going to walk down the hall, or some little thing that I can do. And I have an escape route. I had a woman who came in and her niece was getting married, and they were very close, like sisters when they grew up, and she moved away. Now the girl comes home to have the wedding, and I have to go, but I'm going to have an anxiety attack. I said, well, let's work this out. So we did those little things, get her out of the house, little walks. Then I said, do you know the priest or minister at church? Yeah. Ask them if they'll open the church and you can walk in there when no one's in there. Sit in the last pew. Pray if you want to, do whatever. So we did that. Then she went to a service, sat in the back. Started to get a little bit of an anxiety attack, but she was right in the back pew, so all she did is get up and walk out. Well, that went on for 2 or 3 times, and she was able to sit through a service. Now came the wedding. She sat through about, she said, a half of the wedding, started to feel it. She walked out the back, caught her breath, walked back in, saw her niece get married. So we didn't just say, let's go to the wedding. All right, and maybe you can go, maybe you can't, or you can have your apology ready, send your gift. We said, let's build up to the point we got there. That's an example of one situation with anxiety. And there could be 20 of them, and we do 20 little things like that. It's about learning how to work with small steps. What was the goal in that particular instance? To get to the wedding, to come out of my house. I don't go anywhere. I have my groceries delivered in. Very rarely do people come and see me. I'm home with my animals, whatever those might be, in my comfort zone. We kept stepping out just a little bit. Training the mind. As you train the mind, you feel empowerment on smaller steps. As you feel that empowerment in smaller steps, it reinforces, gee, I did that. Didn't think I could. I don't think I can do that. Maybe I can. Well, I'll try that now. Little steps. And then you build up to getting to where you need to go. And then And so that's kind of like a small example. Then, but if we keep doing that, then that big goal, I like to be either anxiety free or to the point that if someone says, hey, you want to go out to dinner tonight? I say, sure, let's go. I want to get to that point. I'm not going to do that. And I can't keep beating myself up because every time they ask, I say no. I'm going to build small increments in. And then if possible, I'm going to include one or two people because they're going to be my little network. And they're going to say, what are you doing? Let's go for a little walk. Oh, I don't really feel, come on, let's go. And, if you get 100 steps and we have to turn back, that's good. I'm okay with that, but let's try. And those are those good people in your life, not the negatives. Those are the good people that say, I understand, and whatever you can do, I'm okay with. And include some of them in the program. So we build a whole program around the person.
God, that's good. Is it not true that when someone gets to that point where they conquer the wedding, that their bravery of that event bleeds out into all areas of their life?
That's the key. See, and if you build it right, you start alleviating small failures. The small failures, because we tried to jump too far, convince us that we can't. And we don't understand there was some middle ground in there. So what I always say is, you have this little goal. Let's break it down into all the little components we could find, and let's conquer those one at a time. Going back to exercising, you don't go in and say, I want to be pumped up in 2 months. It's impossible. It will never happen. You build on small increments. Maybe 2 years down the road, you say, I have that body I wanted. That's okay. The other key I teach them is to enjoy the process. If you're going to take that step out of the house, don't build it in your mind like, there's a possible crucifixion at the end of it. Build it and say, I think I'm going to try to enjoy this. I'm going to smile. I'm going to think about some good things when I go out the door, which I don't normally do. I'm going to say, oh, look at that nice bird there. I'm going to find some positive markers out there and enjoy that time. I'm not going to make this like they're dragging me through the hot coals and broken glass. There's a lot of beauty and wonder out there. I'm going to go try to identify that when I go out. I may only get out 30 seconds. That's fine. Maybe I'll get a minute tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But as I do, what I'm saying to myself is, see, you did that. It doesn't matter that you had to come in 30 seconds. Yesterday, you didn't do 30 seconds. Tomorrow, you might double it. Tomorrow, you might not just see a bird. You might see a deer went past or a friend went by and waved. Wow, I just waved back. All these little things that we take for granted every day if we don't have anxiety, we build in and we just say one little step at a time. Because what you're doing when you take the big thing and you try to get it right away, you're punishing yourself. You already said to yourself, how do you go build a failure into myself? I'll hate myself when it's done and tell myself, see, that's who you are.
Yes.
Versus being kind to yourself and saying, let me do this one little step at a time. Good, I was good today. Tomorrow, but tomorrow I want to do something again, and the next day I want to try something again. And if you get to day 5 and you couldn't do something new, but you went back and did days 1 through 4, kind of in a few minutes, that's another victory. You didn't go back. Because we all have that comfort zone somewhere where we've evolved. Myself, I teach this, but I know how far I want to go, and maybe I might go on the low part of the roof of my house, but maybe I don't think I want to walk on the peak. But I know I go on the roof. Yep. But the peak, I'm not a roof guy. I think I'll just avoid that.
Yes.
And that's vanity. That's okay.
Yes.
You don't have to do everything. You don't have to do what someone else does. You have to set what you would like to accomplish and then go get that.
Yes. And I wrote down a quote from your book that relates to exactly that. Your comfort nest is your safe place, but the demon is your nest mate.
When you stay at home, what's your demon? Your demon is your brain that now is telling you how horrible you are. Your body, which is now getting fed whatever you're putting in it. The anxiety you continue to feel because if the possibility of extending a little bit comes in, or someone pokes you, that's there. So you may not be going out, you may not be challenging yourself, but in the meantime, you've surrounded yourself with what you think is safe so you don't have to challenge yourself. But in the meantime, that demon's nibbling away at you every day.
Yeah, and it just grows in size because then you step out of your house, and now you're at a point where you're like, uh-oh, anxiety's at a level 10. And so I love that you said, sit on the porch. That's your goal. That's your 1%. Yeah.
It's a big world. When you try to step out of the comfort zone, the world looks immense. It's huge. And where do I go? And you've seen it. I call it setting up little rooms in the big world room concept. Just one little thing at a time. Then you expand, but you make a commitment to continue to expand. That's the only key. I'm going to continue to grow slow at my pace. I wasn't doing that before. That's a complete flip-flop. That's huge. I made a decision to no longer stay in my comfort zone, even if I get out for a minute or two. Because what am I going to try to do? I'm going to try to build it up to maybe, I don't know, going out to dinner, visiting a friend, walking to the park, going to a movie, whatever. I'm going to try to get to that point, but that's not even on the agenda.
Yep.
I'm not even thinking about that, because that will cause me to just lose it. My only thing is what's in front of me. If I'm sitting on the porch, while I'm there, let me look around and say, wow, what's around here? Let me smell the breath, the air from outside. Let me do all those things I don't normally do. And then let me tell me my internal language. Let me say good, positive things about it. So I like that experience when I was out there. Then I can go back inside and relax and say, look what I just did.
Yep. I remember when I was suffering from agoraphobia, the first step I did was I was sitting in my garage. I was sat in my garage, and after that, it got to the point where I went to a coffee shop 3 minutes down the road from my house. I just sat in there for an hour each day. I went there, I got a book, I sat there, and I did that for so long. I got bored of it, and then I moved on.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
That's the way life works. The mind likes to keep on developing things. And it's that old thing, who are you going to feed? You're going to feed the demon, or you're going to feed the angel. So if you feed your mind with good, positive stuff, that's what it grows with. But if you keep it going negative, that's what you lock yourself into. You just, those chains get very heavy.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I agree. Yes. I do want to touch on the power of surrender. You mentioned surrender. I thought this was so good because I remember when I couldn't sleep at night, and I thought to myself, you know what, Brad? If the anxiety kills me, let it kill me. And I sort of surrendered to it, and then I fell asleep eventually. Like, hey, like if it's destined to kill me right now, then take me right now. And it didn't. And I lost my grip. I took my hands off the wheel. So can you just talk about surrender?
Sure. Well, the way I talk about it, and what you're saying is right on the mark. We're using so much of our resources, misguided resources, to try to beat this, that what we tend to do is we're feeding it. And I just say, stop feeding the demon. You're going to surrender to no longer giving in to all the negative things. And in the book, I have a list of 20 or so things that we do that the anxiety continues to put into our lives. And I just say, surrender, stop fighting, stop trying. You don't want to gear your mind to fight the demon. Then you're in battle every day in one you already said you can't win. So stop fighting and just look forward to going out on the porch, to sitting in your garage. I'm not fighting any of this anymore, but I am going to put some things in my life that I can do. I'll go forward. Now I have all these resources available that weren't there because I've been using them to, in my mind, fight this thing off. Mm-hmm. But I've been doing it in such negative terms. I'm going to throw some positive steps into my life. Stop worrying about those and just do one of those little steps. That's all. Mm-hmm. I do tell people, if you got anxiety, go to the doctor, get a wellness visit, get some blood work done, make sure your thyroid is where it needs to be. If you have an overactive thyroid, that's going to produce anxiety, and that may be all it is. So go there, get the wellness visit, get your blood work done, see that everything's where it needs to be, and then go from that point. And surrender for me is surrendering negativity, surrendering the demon uses to hold you. I'm no longer doing that anymore. If I'm your friend and I'm always got you out and I got you drinking and we're going to smoke a little pot and go do our thing in the bars and it's dragging you down, you want to surrender me out of your life.
Yes.
You know what? I surrender. You win. I can't deal with you anymore. You're bringing me down, so I'm going to surrender that out. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to replace that with something that's good. Maybe another friend or an activity or whatever I want to do, but I'm no longer going to do something that feeds my anxiety.
Yes, I love that. Filling the void, right? So many people feel like the reassurance that they're getting from their partner, their loved ones, is what's important to them because they're getting attention, they're getting love. And I can't be selfish and do all of these things outside of these dependencies because, well, I'm going to lose the attention. I'm going to lose the love. I'm going to lose this. And a lot of people are afraid of jumping off the boat because of the losses. So can you talk about that briefly, the letting go of the attachments?
Keep in mind that when you have anxiety and you're trying to find comfort, I do a chapter in the book on desperation. You are desperate to rid this from your life. You will hold on to anything. If you fall off the boat and you're in the water, it doesn't matter what comes by, you're going to grab it. And it's it could be the lifesaver that they pull you with, or it could be the soaked piece of wood that takes you down. So you want to be able to look at what is not working for you. That person who loves you may sit down and say, yeah, come on, we'll go out and we'll have a couple of drinks. So we're sitting down and we're eating to the point that your body is pumped full of sugar and everything else. You've got to make some decisions about what is important to move forward. And that's why I write this kind of a book. So here are all the guidelines. If the people in your life meet what you're doing to move yourself forward, then great, stay with them. If they're not, then you're going to try to change those relationships. If you can't, maybe you need to not leave them, but at least not put them in a prominent place in your life.
Yes.
You may have a loving spouse who really loves you, but doesn't understand what's going on, and they can help you feed the demon. The other thing about those relationships is the good ones, they're going to hear you out. Educate them. You become educated about anxiety. Educate them about anxiety so they have a better idea of what they can do to help you through it. Most of the time, it's not about giving you advice. It's not saying, come on, let's do this. It's just about, you're not alone. I'm here. You want to go sit on the porch? I'll sit with you. You want to take a little walk? I'll go with you. Mm-hmm. Get in the car with me. You don't have to drive. I'll drive us around a little bit and we'll come home. Put those people into a position where, again, they're part of your network and they can help you through things. And, we're applying all this to anxiety, but if you think about it, this is just healthy living. I don't want the guy that wants to bring me to the bar. I'd rather have the guy that says, hey, you want to go and walk at the park, or let's see some good friends, or discuss a book we read, or whatever it may be that you feel is positive. This is just healthy living. That's all we're doing. This is not healthy living for anxiety people. It's healthy living.
Yes.
And we're helping people with anxiety to get to that point. That's all. And that's another key thing I think people need to know. You are normal. There's nothing wrong with the way you think or feel. You have anxiety. We want to get through the anxiety so you can see how normal you really are.
Yes. Faust, I think that's a great place to stop. That was so amazing. I guess to conclude, what are some of the lifestyle choices you're making today, the rituals, routines that you find to be just so beneficial for you?
For me, I've always been a person who wanted to take care of my body. So, I still do that. I've been a vegan for 40 years. We have a little workout center in the basement. We go down every day to do that. So I take care of the body. Emotions, I keep my emotions in check, if you will. If something happens, I want to use my brain. So it's always intellect over emotion. Not that I can't emote. I want to emote later when I've got the right information in my mind. I surround myself with good people. I've done that weeding out process where, the people who weren't going to support the way I needed to go. I don't have them in places they used to be in. I think that's very important. You decide where your faith is. I think for some people, faith can really move you in some great direction. So for me, that's another good thing. And as we were talking before we started the interview, it is just to continue to be a student of life, continue to want to learn. Even at this level where you say, gee, I got everything good. If I stagnate, I create that little prison kind of a thing and I'm not going past it. Eventually that starts to turn on me just a little bit. So I keep on learning, and I don't learn from Facebook or from Shock Press. I learn from, the right places. I keep, and I don't make decisions before I get the information. So there's a lot of good things, and all that's in the book. I mean, it's just a lot of good things. Everything that I wrote in the book for people with anxiety are simply things I practice every day.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I think it's the best way. Make it actionable. But if I'm doing it, I'm the best person to say, here, do this because it works. I'm still doing it every day.
You're the practitioner. Yeah. Everybody who's listening, I mean, share this podcast with someone you could change their life, literally. This was so awesome. I'm so grateful that you decided to come on. This has been so unbelievably informative and insightful and enlightening. I'm so grateful. Can you please tell everybody when they can get the book and where they can?
Yeah, the book we're hoping to have in publication by the end of summer. Until that time, if you're interested in some of the things that I'm doing, you can find me on my website at faustruggiero.com. And it has everything about both books and everything that I'm doing there. You can say, there's excerpts from the book so they can at least kind of see how it's written and say, gee, is this the kind of thing that I think is going to apply to me?
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Been my pleasure.
Brad's powerful anxiety recovery program is now available at unpluganxiety.com. The Anxiety Project program is downloadable and puts the power of anxiety recovery in your own hands. Visit unpluganxiety.com